Think about it. Almost every major crime clusters around one type of place: murder, human trafficking, robbery, violence that just becomes normal. You know what I'm talking about. Red light districts, places where the rules get fuzzy and justice shows up way too late, if at all. But here's what most people don't realize. This isn't some recent phenomenon. These districts have existed for centuries, buried deep inside Europe's most respectable cities. And back in the 1800s, they were infinitely more brutal than anything we see today. The absolute worst one was in Dublin. By 1880, something had broken in this place. Human decency just evaporated. Raw desire crushed any sense of restraint. Poverty killed empathy stone dead. Violence? It was just background noise, part of the daily soundtrack. The collapse didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, quiet. Morality just slowly drained away until there was nothing left to hold on to, and words alone can't capture what this place was really like. So I'm going to take you inside the darkest corners of 1880s Dublin. You're going to see what happens when humanity stops mattering entirely. Fair warning, this isn't just worse than modern red light districts. This is something closer to actual hell. We're in Dublin now, but forget the tourist views. I want you to focus on that door right there. It's narrow, covered in scratches. The paint's been layered over so many times it doesn't even have a real color anymore. You knock. Firm enough to be heard, not loud enough to attract attention. On the other side, a woman's voice cuts through. Completely flat. No warmth, no curiosity. Just two words. Underscore, quote, underscore, zero, underscore. Money slides through a narrow gap in the door. Only after she counts it does the lock click open. The moment you step inside, the air hits you like a wall. Alcohol everywhere, spilled on the floorboards, hanging in everyone's breath, soaked so deep into the walls you can practically taste it. This room isn't designed for comfort, not even privacy. It's designed for efficiency. You see a bed, a single chair, a basin full of murky water. Nothing decorative, nothing personal. Every object here gets reused over and over. This isn't about romance or temptation. It's about volume. From the next room, you hear a sudden impact, flesh hitting wood, then another. A woman cries out, sharp and brief, then pleading, breaking into coughing. More blows land. You can hear someone sobbing now. Nobody inside this room reacts. Nobody even turns their head. The sounds fade, replaced by footsteps and furniture scraping across the floor as things get pushed back into position. Violence doesn't stop business here. It's just part of the operation. The woman watching the door makes it crystal clear. You're not welcome to stay. So you step back outside. On the street, another woman passes you. Something's wrong with how she moves. She's not hurrying, but she's not moving normally either. Can't. Whatever happened to her earlier is still affecting her body. Her face is completely drained, eyes unfocused, jaw clenched tight. This is what it looks like to survive a shift here. A man walks past her going the opposite direction, moving quickly, almost like he's embarrassed. He adjusts his coat as he walks, clean-shaven, completely ordinary looking, the kind of face you'd forget 3 seconds after seeing it. If you saw him anywhere else in the city, you'd never guess where he just came from. That's exactly the point. He disappears down the street, completely untouched by what just happened. The woman goes back inside. Behind the closed doors, more coughing. A whispered conversation between rooms about which client to avoid tonight. Someone spits into a basin. Someone else laughs too loud, then stops abruptly. This house doesn't run on desire or passion. It runs on rotation. Doors open, doors close. Money changes hands. Bodies cycle through the same cramped spaces again and again and again. What gets taken inside these rooms doesn't leave with the customer. It settles into the walls, into the floorboards, into the women who never step outside long enough to escape. Every transaction here carries more than just money. You walk away from that first door and immediately realize how naive you were, thinking there was just one house like that. The buildings here are tall and narrow, crammed together so tightly they almost seem to lean against each other for support. Extra floors stacked on top without any proper planning. Windows cut wherever they fit, not where they should be. Staircases twist upward in darkness, bending at uncomfortable angles that make you feel dizzy. The street gets narrower as you go deeper, not by design, by pressure. Like the district itself is trying to close in around you. None of this was planned. It was compressed, crushed together. All along the street, women position themselves in doorways and beneath dim windows. They don't shout. They don't rush toward you. They just watch, eyes steady and calculating, bodies angled just enough to be noticed. Some offer soft smiles as you pass. Others let their fingers trail slowly along door frames. When one drifts closer to you, it feels natural, almost accidental, like an intimate encounter you're supposed to welcome. Keep your distance. You don't know what that body might be carrying. I'll show you later exactly what I mean. Behind these women, the houses give off a faint glow. Curtains never fully closed, shadows moving just out of clear sight. Sex isn't hidden in this district. It's suggested, offered, designed to feel tempting right up until the moment it becomes dangerous. Inside these buildings, space is carved razor thin. Rooms stacked on top of each other, separated by walls that don't block sound or keep secrets. Multiple transactions happening simultaneously, out of sync, noise bleeding into shared hallways. Privacy doesn't exist here, but anonymity thrives. You're never truly alone, and yet nobody really sees you. Crime grows like mold in conditions like this. Near a staircase, a man stands frozen, patting his coat again and again. His wallet's gone. He looks around frantically, searching faces, trying to spot guilt. His eyes lock with someone bigger, calmer, already aware of what happened. For a second, anger flashes across his face. Then he notices something else. Nobody's paying attention. Nobody moves to help. Whatever was stolen is already long gone. He lowers his hands and backs away slowly. Some things just aren't worth pursuing here. The smell of alcohol hangs permanently in the air, sweet and sour and heavy. It clings to clothes and skin, drifting from open doors and upstairs rooms. Many of these houses pour drinks without licenses, alcohol passed around freely, carelessly. It softens judgment, blurs memory, makes people act faster than they think. Disputes flare up quicker here than anywhere else in the city. Nothing functions normally in this district. Services exist, sure, but without standards, without any real responsibility. Things don't get fixed, they get reused. Problems don't get addressed, they get ignored. This place survives purely on carelessness. Faces change constantly. Sailors, soldiers, laborers. They show up, indulge, and vanish. Consequences never stick around long enough to matter. That first house wasn't dangerous just because of what happened inside it. It was dangerous because of how many other houses exactly like it surround you on all sides. You don't need to step inside anymore. The street is already working on you. Along Montgomery Street, Bodies drift with purpose, not standing still, not waiting, moving. Women slide through the foot traffic like they're part of it, adjusting their pace to match yours, then easing away, then coming back. A hand brushes your sleeve. A voice lands close to your ear, low and warm and practiced. Gone before you can even respond. Nothing crude, nothing loud, just enough to throw you off balance. Keep walking. By Mabbot Street, the crowd thickens. Sailors, fresh from the docks, spill out of public houses. Their laughter is uneven, their footing worse. The air feels looser here. Judgment slips faster. Arguments start over nothing. A look held too long, a shoulder bumped too hard. The street feeds on distraction. You notice men who never seem to move far. They linger near alley mouths and pub doors, watching patterns instead of people. When hesitation appears, they step in. Gentle at first, guiding, redirecting. You think you're choosing a direction. You're not. You're being herded. Pickpockets work in pairs here. One creates the moment, the other takes advantage. A stumble, a sudden question, a hand on your arm to steady you. While you're reacting to one person, the second is already inside your coat. By the time you notice, they're both gone, vanished into the crowd like smoke. The district doesn't need organized crime. It has something better. Opportunism refined into an art form. Near a corner, a woman leans against a doorframe. Young, maybe 16. Her dress is cleaner than most, her posture more careful. She's new here. You can tell by the way she watches the others, copying their gestures but getting the timing wrong. Someone older stands nearby, not helping, just observing, testing to see if she'll adapt or break. This is how the district replenishes itself. Girls arrive, some adjust. Most don't survive long enough to become veterans. The streets are designed to confuse. Alleys branch off at odd angles. Dead ends appear where you expect throughways. If you're not familiar with the layout, you can't leave quickly, can't run, can't find your way back to somewhere safe. That's intentional. Locals know which turns to take, which doors lead where. Outsiders wander in circles, and while they're lost, they're vulnerable. A man stumbles past you, clearly drunk. He veers toward an alley, muttering to himself. Two figures detach from the shadows and follow him. Not rushing, just following. You don't see what happens next, but you hear it. A muffled shout, a thud, then silence. 30 seconds later, those same two figures emerge from the alley, walking calmly, adjusting their clothes. The drunk man doesn't come back out. Nobody intervenes, nobody looks twice. This is just Tuesday night in this part of Dublin. The district operates on unspoken rules. Violence is tolerated as long as it's contained. Theft is expected as long as it targets the right people. Outsiders, travelers, drunk sailors, anyone who won't be missed or believed. Police rarely patrol here, and when they do, they walk in pairs, stay on main streets, avoid eye contact. They're not here to stop anything. They're here to be seen, to say they showed up. Real authority doesn't exist in this district. What exists instead is a kind of chaotic equilibrium. Everyone takes what they can get away with. Nobody protects anyone else. The system sustains itself through constant, low-level predation. By nightfall, the character of the street changes completely. Lanterns burn in windows, casting uneven light across wet cobblestones. The darkness isn't empty. It's crowded. Bodies pressed into doorways, voices low and urgent, transactions happening in seconds. This is when the district fully wakes up. More women appear, more clients, More dealers, more thieves, more watchers. The machinery runs faster at night, more desperate, more dangerous. A woman coughs into her hand, then wipes it on her dress. In the lamplight, you can see blood on her palm. She doesn't pause, doesn't seek help, just keeps working. Because stopping means starving. Another woman negotiates price with a man twice her size. He's drunk, aggressive, pushing for less money, more time. She holds firm until he grabs her wrist. For a moment, everything stops. She looks at him, not afraid, calculating. Then someone else appears, larger, calmer. A brief word is exchanged. The drunk man releases her wrist and walks away, muttering curses. Protection exists here, but it's not free. Women pay a percentage to men who keep the worst violence at bay. Not all violence, just the worst. Enough to keep them functional, enough to keep the business running. This is the economy underneath the economy. Money flows in multiple directions. To landlords who rent rooms by the hour, to men who provide security, to dealers who supply alcohol and other substances, to fixers who smooth over problems with police. Everyone takes a cut. The women at the bottom generate all the revenue and keep almost none of it. A young girl, maybe 14, sits on a step near a doorway. Her dress is torn at the shoulder. Her face is blank. She's not working. Not yet. She's watching, learning. Within a week, maybe 2, she'll be standing in one of those doorways herself. And the girl who's there now will either be gone or moved deeper into the system. The district doesn't run out of bodies. It never has. Poverty feeds it constantly. Girls arrive from the countryside, from failed homes, from situations that were already impossible. They're told there's work here. And there is. Just not the kind they imagined. By the time they understand what's actually expected, they're already trapped. No money to leave, no place to return to, no skills that translate outside this district. So they stay. Not by choice, by elimination of every other option. You're standing in the middle of it now. The crowd flows around you like water. Everyone here is either hunting or hiding, predator or prey, sometimes both at once. This is what happens when society decides a place doesn't matter, when authorities look away, when poverty and desperation are left to sort themselves out. The district isn't an accident, it's a decision, a collective choice to allow this to exist as long as it stays contained, as long as it doesn't spill into respectable neighborhoods. And it works. For decades, it works. The horror stays concentrated. The rest of Dublin goes about its business. Everyone pretends not to know what's happening here. But you know now. You've seen it. By the late 1800s, venereal disease was everywhere in Dublin's red light district. Doctors knew it. Police knew it. City authorities definitely knew it. Hospitals kept records of it. And the trade continued anyway. Infection wasn't treated as an emergency. It was treated as a normal condition of prostitution. Expected, tolerated, just part of the job. On the street, you can see the signs if you know what to look for. A woman scratches at her groin while standing in a doorway. The movement is small, almost polite. She stops when someone looks her way, then starts again a moment later. It's not panic. It's habit, a body responding to irritation that never quite goes away. Illness didn't excuse anyone from work here. There was no rest, no protection, no pause. A woman stopped earning only when her body physically failed, or when someone decided she was no longer usable. You see it in the way another woman leans against a wall, skin flushed, sweat gathering at her hairline despite the cold air. Fever has hollowed out her eyes. She sways slightly while negotiating a price, fingers pressing into brick just to stay upright. Someone steadies her arm. Not to help her recover, just to keep her standing long enough to finish the transaction. Violence made everything worse. Assault against prostitutes was common and almost never punished. Bruises layered over illness, speeding up the decline. A woman passes with dark marks blooming across her arms and ribs, old injuries overlapping with new ones. She adjusts her clothing to hide what she can, not out of shame, out of necessity. Visible damage lowers value. Pain gets managed just enough to keep moving. Public blame fell downward. Prostitutes were labeled as the source of infection. Men were described as unfortunate victims. This framing justified control instead of care. Whispers follow certain women. Others step aside from them. They get pushed toward cheaper rooms, harsher clients, darker corners where nobody's watching too closely. Illness becomes another way to be sorted. Medical institutions existed, but they controlled more than they healed. Lock hospitals isolated women, examined them, detained them. Treatment was invasive and often incomplete. One familiar woman disappears from the street, no announcement, no explanation. Within days, another takes her place, younger, already learning the same gestures. Death followed quietly. Records were thin, names slipped away. There were no investigations, no memorials, no pauses in the trade. Faces vanish. Nobody asks where they went. Work continues. In a system where violence is tolerated and silence is enforced, disease becomes the final regulator. When nothing else intervenes, the body just gives out. Women didn't leave this district. They disappeared. There was no retirement here, no quiet exit, no moment where a life gently came to an end. When a woman became too ill, too injured, or too depleted to keep working, she simply stopped appearing. Her absence wasn't announced. It wasn't questioned. The street adjusted around it and moved on. One day, a familiar figure no longer stands at the corner she always occupied. The next night, nobody mentions her. Conversations step around the gap she left, like naming it might slow things down. Memory becomes inconvenient. Death was common, but rarely specific. Records existed, but they were thin and careless. Causes blurred together. Illness, weakness, exposure. There were no investigations, no public concern. A woman was said to have _, _0_. That was enough. No date, no details. The information passes briefly, then dissolves into the noise of the street. Institutions handled removal quietly. Hospitals, workhouses, asylums received women deemed no longer functional. Transfers happened early, before the district fully woke. No arguments, no farewells. Once a woman crossed that threshold, she rarely returned. What happened after was administrative, not human. By nightfall, her place was already empty. And then it was filled. Replacement happened without pause. Younger women arrived as older ones vanished. The posture was the same. The gestures were learned quickly. The rhythm didn't change. Nobody introduced them. Continuity mattered more than memory. The district couldn't afford to remember everyone it consumed. Families rarely intervened. Many women were estranged long before they arrived here. Some had no recorded relatives at all. Bodies went unclaimed. Burials were functional, organized to clear space, not to honor a life. Names were spoken once, then never again. What remained was absence without consequence. This was the final layer of control. Violence could be ignored. Disease could be tolerated. Silence could be enforced. But disappearance solved everything else. It removed responsibility. It erased obligation. It allowed the system to continue without interruption or reckoning. The district didn't collapse because people died. It survived because they vanished. By the end of the 19th century, Dublin's red light district was no secret. It was known far beyond Ireland, spoken about by travelers, officials, reformers in the same breath. Quote 1. Not because it was hidden, because it was visible, because it operated openly, in full view of a city that learned to live beside it. For years, nothing changed. Reform didn't begin with concern for the women who vanished inside it. It began when reputation became a liability, when commerce, governance, and Dublin's standing abroad started to feel the stain. Moral outrage followed embarrassment, not suffering. The pressure came from outside eyes, not inside losses. When action finally arrived, it was precise and limited. Brothels were shut down, patrols increased, streets were reclaimed. The goal wasn't to understand what had happened here, just to stop it from being seen. Women were removed, displaced, folded into other institutions, or pushed elsewhere. The machinery that created the district, poverty, demand, indifference, remained completely untouched. The district didn't end, it moved. There was no reckoning afterward, no inquiry into deaths, no accounting for disappearances, no attempt to trace responsibility back through police, courts, hospitals, or city offices. Closure was treated as resolution. Silence did the rest. Time finished the work. Streets were renamed. Buildings were repurposed or torn down. New life settled over old ground. Physical traces faded, and with them, the memory of what once functioned here so efficiently. What had been tolerated for decades became easier to forget once it no longer occupied space. But forgetting was the final convenience. Dublin didn't outgrow this district. It absorbed it, then buried it. What happened here was never an aberration, never an isolated pocket of moral failure. It was a system, allowed to operate until it became inconvenient to acknowledge. What you've just seen wasn't an anomaly, and it wasn't a moral collapse confined to one corner of Dublin. It was a system, built, tolerated, and maintained for as long as it remained useful. Violence was absorbed, disease was normalized, people disappeared, and the city adjusted. When the district finally closed, nothing was repaired. It was simply removed from sight. The structures that allowed it to exist didn't vanish. They shifted elsewhere, under different names, behind cleaner facades. If this unsettled you, that's the point. History isn't meant to comfort us. It's meant to show us what societies are willing to accept when it's convenient, and what they're willing to forget when it's not. Thanks for watching.